Hello, Palladium fans. We are back with another episode of the official History of Palladium Books. I'm here with Kevin, and today we're going to talk about the Rifter. Now, if you've been following along from the beginning, it should be no surprise that a Palladium Books fanzine would come about because, I mean, Kevin, one of your first endeavors was a fanzine.
Oh, yeah. Well, Alex and I did actually like 4 or 5 different fanzines. I don't think any of them got past issue number 2. But, you know, I was into fanzines. I would subscribe to various fanzines. Yeah. So, yeah.
And this is at a time where the industry, this is how you got new information, right? This was, you know, we're still at the earliest days of the internet. So things like, as we were talking about, Dungeon and Dragon magazine, especially in the early days where Dragon was really more ubiquitous. Like it was the entire role-playing hobby. You would pick up a Dragon magazine and it wasn't like a house organ for TSR. You would find things for Rollmaster and Palladium and all of these other things. This was how we as the fans subscribed to our favorite companies. It's a little bit like liking and subscribing this YouTube video and subscribing to the Palladium Books channel. How did the Rifter come about? What made you go, we should do a fan-driven magazine?
Well, it was actually Marianne, my wife at the time. It was her idea. So one of the things we were dealing with all the time was people reaching out and saying, hi, I want to write a novel. I want to get a short story for Riffs, or, you know, how can I share my adventure ideas? Or, gosh, I want to write a source book or an adventure book. And the problem with that is, you know, we don't know these people from Adam. We don't know if they can write. And there was a point where we would probably get 300 manuscripts a year from people. Oh, yeah. And sadly, you know, 99% are being just completely rejected. And then people get upset because, you know, even if it's a 64-page source book in their mind, you know, they probably put 2, 3, 4, 6 months into that. And if it's a big 160 or 224-page source book, they may have put a year or 2 in that. And, you know, I felt bad in that we were always rejecting these things because sadly, and this is no offense to anyone out there, but everyone thinks they can write. And writing is more difficult than people imagine.
It is a craft. I mean, there's a reason why it is referred to as a craft. It is something that you have to hone and work at. And even when you think you're good at it, you go back and read the stuff you wrote even 2 years ago. You're like, oh, who is this joker? How did he ever think he could?
That's for sure. And so we felt bad having these people write these big, massive things and put months and months of their lives into it, only to see it likely to be rejected. And so Marianne came up with the idea of, hey, why don't we do sort of a fanzine where people could send in short submissions? It'd be an opportunity for us to see what they're capable of, seeing if they can hit a deadline, seeing, you know, what their writing is like. And you know, plus it gives them a chance to be out there. And it's cool because, you know, you can post online and that's awesome and everyone does it. And some people start their whole own channel or website or whatever. And that's great. But there's just something cool about being published.
Yeah.
And as someone who's had, you know, has written over 200 books or contributed to more than 200 books, I still get a kick when a book comes out and my name's in it, right? It's just cool. So I thought this is a great idea. And then as you mentioned, I had experience of fanzines. So in my mind, you know, the Rifter would become sort of like a fanzine talent show for artists and writers. I mean, that's how we tried Apollo Okamura, artist, Mark Oberle, was one of our writers. There were numerous people who submitted stuff that we tried out in the Rifter and saw them grow and decided, hey, let's see if they can write a book.
Yeah.
Or if they wanted to write a book. Or sometimes we would take some of their ideas and say, hey, let's spin it off. That's, you know, Shadows of Light was Jason Vey wrote a really good Rifter article that we really liked, and I said, "Hey, Jason, you want to take a shot at creating something bigger, more expansive? We'll release it as a Nightbane source book." And he's like, "Yeah, that'd be great." Todd Yoho, Glenn Evans, Greg Diazic. These are all writers who have been contributing to the Rifter for forever. And that's how we first got to meet them. And then, after a while, some of these guys, even if they became regular, book writers, they still liked contributing to the Rifter because, it has good memories. And if they have just something that doesn't warrant a book, but hey, I got this cool adventure or a dozen new monsters or fairies or whatever the hell, they can submit it to the Rifter.
That was always one of my favorite part about this era of gaming was the fact that you could go out and fairly inexpensively get a magazine that was filled with submissions from gamers like you. And one of the great things about Rifter specifically is it would oftentimes tide me over between book releases, right? We always got Rift's books coming out, but I was also a huge fan of Heroes Unlimited and Palladium Fantasy. And there were a ton of great articles that, yes, as a GM, you have to, the Rifter is unofficial. So, there are things where you're like, I'm going to tweak that, or I'm not going to allow that, or I'm going to use that, but I'm going to, buff it up a little bit. But it allowed all of the game lines to feel like there was always something coming out for them. And I loved that because, it encouraged me as a writer. It encouraged me as a game master to say, hey, some of the stuff that I'm using in my game, maybe one day could end up in a Rifter.
Absolutely. And we loved it too. There was a lot of great stuff. And you're right. It was sort of like a bridge where I'm starving for Palladium Fantasy. Well, check out this adventure or this source material by Paul Herbert or Ian Herbert or Glenn Evans or whoever, and it was like, it was a great way for people to get their fix without getting an actual official source book, and it was an opportunity for people who loved the games like you do, like I do. Who could, don't have an avenue to get published, and gave them an opportunity to express themselves. And I love that. I also love different ideas. I often talk about how role-playing is very personal, and everyone plays it a little differently. And, this was a great way for people to express, hey, here's my house rules, or this is how I interpret this, or this is how I do that, or, and it's great to see other people's playing styles.
Yeah. And before the days of forums, people could be like, Kevin, how does this work? And you would write a little clarification. So it was this living, breathing line that you never quite were sure what you were going to get when the next Rifter hit, but there was always something you could use in it.
Well, and that was, I have to give a lot of that to Wayne Smith. After Marianne and I had kind of figured out the format and how we wanted to do things, my big reservation on doing it is, well, geez, it's going to be originally we thought about doing it like bi-monthly, and I'm like, I don't see how we can do that with our schedule. I said, but quarterly, I could see us doing quarterly. And I said, but even that, I said, what, every Rifter, it takes as much work to do a Rifter, or just about, as it does to produce a 96-page source book. And
it still has to be edited. It still has to be laid out. Art still has to be ordered.
Exactly. And I said, I don't really have time for this. And she says, well, what about Wayne? And Wayne had just been hired a few months earlier. And we had met Wayne. That's sort of a fun origin story. I was a big time Star Wars toy collector, action figure. Well, all kinds of Star Wars toys. And there were certain action figures and stuff I couldn't get. And so Marianne had put out on the web that we were looking for stuff, and especially if you're in a neighborhood, in the area, let us know if you find certain figures. Reach out to us, and maybe we'll trade you some books for your toys, and that kind of thing. And then we also needed warehouse help when people, or when new books came in. And just for a day is like just day work stuff where someone comes in and helps us unload the truck and pack up orders to distributors for 6 or 8 hours and then go home. And Wayne was one of those guys. Wayne and a couple of his buddies reached out and were like, "We got these Star Wars toys we think you'd want," and we're like, "Cool." And so they came by and we kind of hit it off with Wayne, and then he said he was like, "Yeah, I can help sometimes with with the books." And he was like 22, I want to say, at the time. And
now he's a fixture at Palladium Books.
Well, yeah, and then we hired him like a year or two later because I think he started in 1997, and I think we hired him in the end of 1998. And the first Rifter came out, and we found out he was a decent editor. I mean, he had no training for it, but I mean, he was good. He'd catch grammatical things and spelling, and he was great with continuity because he knew all of our books. He read everything, and we're like, "Hey, why don't you come on board? You can be an editor, our IT guy," because he was a IT guy at a hospital, and he was making good money, but he didn't really like the work. He didn't really care for the hours, and we're like, "Well, why don't you give Palladium a try?" So he did, and he stayed on, and he was great with selecting articles and stuff for the Rifter. He did a great job with the Rifter for many, many issues, and he was just he was a good editor-in-chief, still is. Theoretically, the Rifter is now an annual. The first annual came out, in 2003? No, 2002 or 3, and because I know we're like a couple issues behind now. It's just, things have been crazy here.
Yeah. So. But I mean, again, when the annual came out, it made a lot of sense to me because, again, as a comic book guy, I was looking for, I'm used to annuals, right? Like that's something that comic books regularly do.
Yep. So that made sense, when it was Sean who suggested us doing it as an annual. And I said, yeah, that's great. And Sean put together that first issue, number 85.
Yeah.
And we've got all kinds of submissions, some very good ones for Rifter 86 and 87. We just need to put those damn books together.
Just need the time to get them assembled.
Yeah, exactly. So, we're actually I think a smaller company than most people realize that we are. We're all busy. We're trying to build the company up, and that takes time all by itself too. And we got all kinds of other things happening. So, yeah, unfortunately, Rifter is on a little bit of a lower priority, but we still intend to do it. So if you guys still have aspirations on submitting to the Rifter someday, it can happen, and it's a great way to get your work in print.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, the thing about the Rifter is there are so many great issues and articles and stories that are told across the 85 issues. We got Machinations of Doom comic by Ramon Perez. We got the Cosmic Forge story, the Phase World story. There was the Expanded Necromancers, which was just a great issue where we got 3 or 4 different new types of necromancies and necromancers in there. There are a ton of great adventures, new OCCs, new martial arts. I could go on, but there's 85 issues. I don't think we have time to recount everything that is in them. But we should talk about Rifter 9.5.
We should.
So Rifter 9.5, I know some people in my gaming group did not get that it was an April Fool's issue when it came out. It had the draw your own cover, which was spectacular.
Thank you.
It had which is funny because that's actually also a callback. There are several issues from DC and Marvel where they would have draw your own cover issues of Batman or Spider-Man. It had giga damage, weapons that shot all the way around the world minus, a foot, so you didn't shoot yourself in the back. And the Giga Damage, the GDC-22, if I remember correctly, the only piece of Giga Damage armor in existence. So, first of all, I know you're a fan of Mad Magazine, so it's no surprise to me that at some point along the line we got issue 9.5. But there's a funny story about this that ties back to the Rift's line editor, or the Rifter line editor, Wayne Smith.
Yeah, so back in the day, we'd often get customers complaining to their distributor that some hotly anticipated book was in the store, and why can't they get it?
It's spotted in the wild.
And they saw it. They saw it at store X, and distributors would call us and go, "Where is this book? These guys are telling me," and we're like, "It's not out yet." But they saw it. They saw it in one of my competitors' stores, and we're like, "No." They didn't. And that would happen all the time, which is, I mean, it's cool. I mean, we took it as a compliment that people wanted our stuff so badly, and that was nice. And then, with the advent of the internet, people started to, publish their own articles and things like that. And so anyways, somebody had recommended we do a humor issue, and I thought that'd be cool. And this is like in January, and I'm like, it would be really great as an April Fool's Day joke if we came out with a issue of the Rifter that Wayne Smith, the editor-in-chief, knows nothing about, that we just put the whole thing together on the sly. And we did, and I was kind of surprised we pulled it off. And I'm not really a big prankster kind of guy. I don't do pranks, really. And I really just like cruel pranks. But we put this whole thing together. Bill Coffin was part of it, and some other folks. And I got art done for it on the sly too. I mean, that part was easy because I was the art director, right?
Right.
And Wayne was pretty much working 9 to 5. We would work on, after he went home or over the weekend, to paste it up. And then, no one notices when the owner of the company disappears for a few hours, say to run an errand or drop off the book at the printer. Because remember, none of this was digital. We were still doing physical paste ups.
Right. And for people who are unfamiliar with that is you would print out the things and paste them onto the sheets so that you would actually create a physical paste up of each page. Art it's one of the reasons that the Palladium format has remained very consistent throughout all of the years, is because that was the way you guys did it.
Well, originally, and then obviously everything's digital nowadays. But so, anyways, it was easy to run it all off, and so the book comes in just in time too. It was great, and I call Wayne to come into my office, and he comes in, and everyone is there. And he doesn't think anything of it. And I said, "So Wayne, you know how we're hearing about people are producing their own books using our game system and stuff?" And he's like, yeah. And I said, "So how do you explain this? Wayne Smith's, Rifter 9.5." And he's like, I can't. I don't know. And Marianne pulls out a camera and starts to take pictures, and everyone's laughing. And he's like, "What's going on here?"
Wait a second.
So it was great. It was worth every bit of energy that went into it, and it was great to see his reaction to it. It's just a fun memory, and we're just all goofballs. So
yeah, well,
it was fun to do.
One of the things I love about the Rifter is, if you pay attention to Palladium books, you'll eventually see things where it's like, this section of the book taken from Rifter, with ideas from Rifter 8 or with ideas from Rifter 23. And you were really good about saying, "Hey, these guys did something cool that's kind of on track, but I'm gonna remix it and put it into this new book," which I can only imagine for those original writers is just such a huge.
I hope so.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that their stuff that he did for the Rifter became something official. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, thanks for talking about the Rifter. We'll be back in 2 weeks with more of the official history of Palladium books. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I am keeping track of them, and we'll add them into our outlines for future episodes.
I don't know. The way you did that, it was like, these are not the droids you're looking for.